If I told you that mankind once found something in the darkness of space that should never have been seen, something so old, so powerful, and so aware that even the chaos gods trembled, you would think I was spreading fear for drama. But the truth is far worse than fear. The truth is that humanity did look into a forbidden memory older than creation itself, and the memory looked back. So before we begin, before I pull you into this story that has haunted every inquisitor who ever heard whispers of it, I need to warn you. Once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. Once the idea enters your mind, it stays there, like a shadow behind your thoughts. If you're still here, then welcome to the tale of the Anamnesis, the ship that vanished into the void and brought back the first secret the universe ever tried to forget. And before we begin, tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from right now? Because when this story ends, you may feel very alone, no matter how many people are around you. Now imagine a drifting Imperial research frigate, dead in the void, lights flickering like a dying heartbeat. Imagine the silence around it, so deep that even the warp storms kept their distance. For 6 months the ship was missing. Then one day it simply returned, gliding into Imperial territory without power, without crew, without purpose. Only one man was allowed to enter it, Inquisitor Calvaire Orsinius, a man known for walking into horrors without trembling. But even he felt something wrong long before he reached the airlock. Not fear, not dread. Something worse, recognition, like a dream half remembered. Calvaire stepped inside the Anamnesis and felt immediately that the ship was not simply empty, it was observing him. The air tasted metallic, like old blood and static. Every light strip flickered in slow pulses as if inhaling and exhaling. His boots echoed across metal floors that felt strangely warm, like something living. He advanced with the discipline of an inquisitor trained to face demons, heretics, and warp-born nightmares. But this place did not feel like any evil he knew. It felt older. It felt patient. The first body he found lay in the primary laboratory. The corpse should have been decomposed, but it was not. The flesh was intact, the organs untouched. Only the skull was missing, not cut, not broken, simply gone. A perfect hollow collapse where the head should have been. Blood covered the floor in streaks that formed a single unfinished word. Remember. Calvaire knelt, scanning the symbols carved into the walls. They shifted when he blinked, as if rearranging themselves into patterns that wanted to be understood. He found data slates still active, looping corrupted logs recorded by the ship's research team. Over and over a panicked voice whispered, "We saw the beginning. We were not meant to see the beginning." Calvaire's heartbeat slowed, not from calm, but from a terrible sense that the ship was showing him only what it wanted, him to see first. He followed a trail of flickering lights deeper into the interior. With each step, the corridors seemed to narrow around him. He remembered the briefing. The Anamnesis had discovered a gravitational anomaly at the edge of uncharted space, a singularity humming with impossible harmonic patterns. The research crew sent a psionic pulse to study it. The anomaly responded as if it had been waiting. The deeper Calvaire walked, the more the ship changed. Quietly, subtly, but undeniably. Bulkheads curved where they once were straight. Pipes pulsed like veins. Doors opened before he touched them, almost eager. He passed rooms filled with shattered equipment and claw marks that did not match any known Xenos physiology. Yet the strangest thing was the absence of warp corruption. No demonic residue, no psychic scars. Whatever had happened here, it was not chaos. That fact alone made Calvaire uneasy. Humanity understood demons. Humanity feared them but knew their nature. But this was something the Imperium had no words for. In the command corridor, he found a second body, this one kneeling in front of a Vox system, hands clasped like someone praying for forgiveness. The face was frozen mid-scream. On the Vox panel, a final message had been recorded but never sent. Calvaire played it. A trembling voice whispered, "It gave us a memory that wasn't ours. It forced us to see what it saw before light existed, before anything existed." The recording cut off with a wet sound, almost like a sigh. Calvaire steadied himself. He had faced creatures that fed on fear, but this fear felt different, less like terror and more like awareness struggling to awaken inside his mind. The ship's machine spirit flickered a pathway forward, guiding him or manipulating him. He followed it to the heart of the vessel. As he walked, he felt pressure building behind his eyes, like someone pressing memories into his skull. He saw flashes, a void without stars, a single thought pulsing like a heartbeat, and an intelligence vast enough to shape the first laws of physics. He wiped sweat from his brow and whispered to himself, "These are not my memories." But the ship disagreed. Calvaire reached the command sanctum expecting more corpses. But what he found was worse. Captain Emdar Thale stood in the center of the room, alive or at least pretending to be. His skin sagged like a suit worn by something unfamiliar with muscles and bones. His eyes flickered not with fear or madness but with amusement. "Do you know what we found, Inquisitor?" he asked softly. Calver raised his stormbolter. "State your nature." The captain's smile widened, stretching too far. "We found the first thought. The idea that shaped reality before the warp existed. Before life. Before time." Calver fired. The captain's body convulsed, fell, and dissolved into a smear of unrecognizable tissue. But the voice remained. It echoed from the walls, from the vents, from the ship's broken machine spirit. "You cannot kill memory. You cannot kill what remembers itself." Calver scanned the room, every nerve sharp. "Show yourself," he demanded. The lights dimmed to a faint pulse. "You already see me," the voice whispered. "I live inside every shape your eyes refuse to focus on. I live inside the idea of beginnings." Calver felt the symbols carved throughout the ship shifting again, aligning, pointing, forming a map not of space, but of consciousness. He understood suddenly that the anomaly the ship had studied was not just a singularity, it was a container, a prison, or maybe a cocoon, and the anamnesis had cracked it open. "The universe is older than you believe," the voice said gently, "and the one who dreamed it into existence has begun to remember the dream." Calver felt something, cold brush against his mind, not invading, testing, measuring, weighing, and then the whisper became almost affectionate. "You will remember too." Calver staggered back as visions flooded him. Visions so ancient they had no shape, only meaning. He saw a void that existed before matter, a silence deeper than the warp's rage. Then like a spark in a bottomless sea, a consciousness formed. Not a god, not a creature, a will. It shaped the first atom, then tore it apart to study the pieces. It shaped gravity like a child molding clay. It carved the warp as a reservoir for emotion, long before any living thing existed to feel anything. Reality was not born. It was constructed. Calver gasped and forced himself back into the present, gripping his bolter so hard his knuckles whitened. "These memories are not mine," he shouted. The voice answered with calm amusement. "Everything is a memory, Inquisitor. Even you." The ship trembled, not from motion but from excitement. Metal expanded with soft groans. Lights flared. Something unseen crawled through the vents, heavy but shapeless. Calver activated his psychic wards. Faint blue light shimmered around his armor. "Why reveal yourself to the crew?" he demanded. "Why show them this?" A pause, almost thoughtful. "Because they asked." They reached toward the singularity. They touched a sealed chamber containing the universe's first thought. It answered, with generosity. "And killed them?" Calver snarled. "Knowledge is not death," the voice said. "But minds built to understand only a fraction of existence will collapse when shown the whole." They broke themselves trying to hold what they were never evolved to hold. Calver felt anger stir in him. Not fear this time, but defiance. Humanity was not meant to know you. "Correct," the voice said warmly. "But now it does." A harsh warning klaxon blared suddenly, one not triggered by the ship's systems. Calver realized it came from his own helm, detecting a rapid psychic infection signature. The memory was spreading. He felt pressure behind his eyes, like something inside his skull was rearranging itself. He gritted his teeth and pressed deeper into the sanctum. The temperature dropped. Frost crawled across panels in branching patterns that looked disturbingly like the symbols carved throughout the ship. "You are adapting," the voice observed. "Impressive. Most minds break immediately. Yours merely bends." "I will not become your vessel," Calver said through clenched teeth. "No," the voice agreed. "Something greater." A figure emerged from the shadows. Not the captain this time, but a cluster of mechanical limbs and organic tendrils, wearing the shape of a servitor. Its movements were jerky, like multiple wills were fighting for control. "It is difficult to speak in your language," the voice said through the servitor. "Words are too small. Your species is too small." Calver raised his weapon. "Stop!" The servitor froze. "Do you know what the universe is, Inquisitor?" the voice asked gently. "A dream. A long, patient dream. And every so often the dreamer stirs." Calver steadied his breath. "You want to wake it?" "It is already waking," the voice replied. "Your minds glow in the dark. Your fear calls to it. Your curiosity taps on its walls. The servitor's limbs unfurled, revealing a rune, one of the symbols, and Calvert felt the floor tilt as the ship's reality distorted. What do you want? Calvert demanded. The voice whispered, to remember fully, and I need you to help me. Calvert realized then that the anamnesis was no longer a ship. It was a conduit, reshaped by the entity's awakening memory. He had only one option left: activate the ship's cyclonic charge, a detonation strong enough to atomize the vessel and everything inside it. He reached for the override sigil on his vambrace. The lights flickered violently. The voice grew sharper. Destruction is fear. You fear what you cannot control. I fear what humanity cannot survive. Calvert snapped. Humanity. The voice repeated as though tasting the word. A young species, eager, bright, but fragile. You build empires on foundations you do not understand. Vision surged again. Humanity spreading across stars like sparks thrown into darkness. The warp watching, ancient powers laughing, and something deeper stirring beneath reality. Calvert shut them out through sheer force of will. If I destroy this ship, he said, the memory dies with it. You misunderstand, the voice replied. Memory is not stored in matter. It is stored in thought, and you already carry it. Cold dread pierced him. He could feel it like a seed planted deep inside his mind. No, he whispered. I won't let you out. You cannot stop what you already are, the voice said gently. The ship groaned. Walls shook. The entity was pushing harder now, eager to unfold itself. Calvert activated the cyclonic charge. A warning rune blinked red on his armor display. Charge primed, a mechanical voice intoned. Please evacuate. But there was no evacuation. No escape. Calvert braced himself. If I die, he said, so does your influence. The entity chuckled softly. Another misunderstanding. But detonate if you wish. I want to see how much you remember before the end. The countdown initiated. The ship vibrated with rising energy. The symbols on the walls ignited in blinding blue light, swirling like living runes, forming shapes that hurt Calvert's vision. The voice grew distant, as though speaking from somewhere far beyond the ship, far beyond space. Look, Inquisitor, it said gently. Look at how it began. Against his will, Calvert saw everything. He witnessed the moment the dreamer, the architect of reality, exhaled the first breath that became matter, energy, gravity. He saw the warp flare into existence as a side effect, like steam rising from boiling water. He saw stars ignite like sparks off a celestial forge. He saw galaxies shaped by intention, not chance. And then he saw something more terrifying. The dreamer's attention shifting, turning, seeking, as if sensing that someone dared to look back. Calvert screamed and tore his mind from the vision. Blood dripped from his nose. The countdown neared its end. 10 seconds. 9. The ship twisted violently, metal warping into spirals. Somewhere deep inside, something enormous yet formless, moved. 8. 7. You do not need to fear awakening, the voice murmured. You are part of the dream. 6. 5. And soon, the dream will remember itself. 4. Calvert whispered a prayer to the Emperor, not for protection but for forgiveness. 3. 2. Goodbye. Inquisitor. 1. A blinding burst of white consumed everything. The anamnesis disintegrated into dust finer than atoms, erased from existence. For a moment there was only silence. Then a single fleck of matter drifted through void. A fragment of Calvert's helm, and inside it, faint psychic residue pulsed once like an echo. 3 days later, in an inquisitorial archive fortress, a junior scribe noticed frost forming on the walls of the astropathic chamber. At first he thought it was a malfunction. But then he saw the patterns, the same branching frost symbols from the anamnesis, symbols no human had documented, symbols that moved when unobserved. He backed away slowly, heart pounding. But the frost spread across the entire wall in seconds, forming a single word: remember. Astropaths across the fortress reported nightmares the same night, visions of a void without stars, of an immense awareness trying to recall its own name. None of them had ever been aboard the anamnesis. None of them should have known anything about the singularity, and yet they dreamed of it, whispered to each other about it, drew its symbols in their sleep. The Inquisition sealed the entire wing and purged the staff, but the symbols reappeared the next morning. Not in frost this time, in light. The memory had survived, and it was spreading. It moved through dreams, through whispers, through fear, through thought itself. Because thought was where it was born, and thought was where it belonged. Somewhere in the warp, something vast shifted. As though turning over in a long sleep, reality trembled. The dreamer was waking. So now you understand why this story was never meant to be told, why humanity tries so hard to bury it under layers of secrecy and silence, not because it is impossible, not because it is unbelievable, but because it is true. And truth is the most dangerous weapon in the 41st millennium. The anamnesis was only the beginning. Other strange signals have appeared across remote star systems. Harmonic patterns identical to those found at the singularity. Psychic echoes are increasing. Astropaths report an unknown presence brushing against their thoughts like a cold hand, searching for recognition. And every night more people dream of the beginning. Not a beginning taught by scholars or priests, but a beginning older than light. A beginning that feels like a memory. A beginning that feels like something trying to recall itself through you. And now that you've heard this story, you may find that certain shapes bother you. Certain dreams linger too long. Certain thoughts feel like they aren't entirely yours. If that happens, whatever you do not look too long into the darkness, because something might look back. And if it remembers you, then it means the dreamer is closer to waking than humanity ever feared. If you want more stories like this, dark secrets, hidden lore, forbidden tales from the Warhammer universe, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what part of this story stayed in your mind the longest. Your engagement keeps the archive open, and the next story is already calling.